Hey everybody, this is Virginia with 13 Design. Thanks so much for joining me here today for our Stick It series. This is episode 6. This is a continuation, so this is part 2. Yep, this one had 2 parts. I had so much I wanted to share with you. So today we're going to focus on paint blending. I am going to make some legs for my little table and install them, and then we're going to be done with our project. Oh, and there's a little bit of painting too. So the tools you'll need for today, I'll go through as we go along, and hopefully you're brave enough to give it a try and create your own little table. So let's get started and let's make a mess.
So this project starts with something that I don't really excel at. That's math and measuring. I need to get the circumference of our circle so that I know how far apart our legs of our little table need to be. So I'm going to use this twine and I'm going to take it around the whole outside perimeter of our circle to get the measurement to see what I'm working with here. So I'm going to use my twine. Yeah, there's probably an easier way. And then I'm going to just measure my twine. How much twine did it take me to go around the outside of our circle? So now I've got that measurement and I'm going to do a little high-tech math. Yeah, no, not even close. Again, there's probably a much easier way to do this, but remember, I'm an artist, not a mathematician. So now that I know how far apart our 3 legs are going to be, yep, I'm only doing 3 legs because I kind of like the way they look on a circle. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to measure it out, yep, using my twine again, and make sure to put little marks where each of my legs need to go. So I'm just using my handy dandy pencil to put little marks where each of the legs will go. Now here are my legs. I actually have 4, I only need 3. Right? And these are from another project and I saved them, and boy am I glad I did. So you can see that these are very shiny glossy legs, and there's a hole. Yep, a little hole where I guess support used to be attached. But never fear, I'm going to cover that up. And you can see from a previous refinishing there's some drips and imperfections. That won't be a problem, you'll see why in a bit. So we do need a drill, don't be afraid, and wood glue. Yep, these will be necessary for this project. So we're going to get out our drill bits and we're going to choose the size we need, and then we're going to go ahead and drill holes where each of our legs will attach. Once we're done drilling, we want to make sure that all of our sawdust is cleaned up and we can move on to the next step. So the legs are ready with their new screws in the top. And I do have a tutorial showing you how to do that. I am going to cover the hole. I'm not going to fill it. I'm actually going to use some twine because I think that would look really cool with this design. Kind of like a rope, right? Like a cowboy rope. So first things first, this is really shiny glossy and I want to paint these legs. So in order to do that, I have to properly clean them with the wood cleaner. So, and when I do this, you guys are going to be amazed at what comes off of this. So let me just lay this down here and I'm going to squirt a little bit on and let it sit for about 5 minutes. I, of course, am going to need to do this to all 3 legs that I intend to use. And in fact, I think I'll probably do it to all 4 just so that I have an extra in case I need it for anything. So then I'm going to wipe off the wood cleaner, and look at this yuck and grime that's coming off of these, right? This is why it's so super important to clean your wood before you paint it. Otherwise, this dirt and grime could seep through my brand new paint job and make it look all yellowish. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint, and I'm just using a chalk paint. You could use acrylic paint, but you want to make sure to get around the entire spindle, right? We want to make sure it's completely covered, and it may take 2 coats if you really want to cover it up nicely. So I'm going to do this again to all 3 of my legs. While I'm waiting for my paint on my legs to dry, I'm going to paint the edge and the underside of my table, just because it gives it a nice finished look. I chose a nice soft pink color for the underside of my table. I am going to water it down a bit because this brand tends to be thick. I'm also going to spritz my wood with a little bit of water just so that the paint will distribute nicely. So I'm going to put one, probably 2 coats down. I'm just going to show you the one here, and I'm going to completely cover the bottom side of my table. And again, just making sure this is a nice, even, thin coat. We don't want big glops of paint, right? Once I'm certain that the entire underside is covered, I'm going to go ahead and dry it. I want to make sure it's completely dry so I can get a good look at how well the first coat covered. I am going to go back over some of the darker spots and knot holes with a little bit of extra paint just to make sure that they're not so noticeable. And then I'm going to make sure everything is dry. Now I want to go back in and add to some of my blending that we did in part 1, just because once it dried, it was a little bit darker than I wanted. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the light paint in through the top here. I think this looks better and it adds more dimension. The next step is painting the edge of my table. And initially I painted it teal, but I changed my mind later and changed it to a nice warm brown, which I felt complemented my paper better. While I was painting the underside of the table, the legs had a chance to dry. So I'm going to get my twine and a little bit of hot glue. I'm sure you all have a hot glue gun. And we're going to add the twine around the middle portion of the legs, all 3 legs. This will help hide the imperfections that I had there, the hole. And I think it'll be a nice complement because it's kind of like a lasso type thing, even though it's just twine. But I thought it might complement the Southwestern paper that I chose for the top. So I'm just going to wrap the twine around the middle portion of the leg, and I'm going to tack it down with hot glue as I go to make sure it's not slipping. And we're just going to completely wrap it. This very easily hides any of the imperfections that we've had, and of course the hole where the support had previously been attached when these legs were used on another project. I just love reusing my supplies whenever necessary. So again, I did this to all 3 legs. I think it looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of wood glue at the holes where I'm going to screw the legs in. This extra little step here, just adding the glue to the hole and then to the top of the leg here where it's going to screw in, just helps ensure that it's going to be a nice solid bond and we don't need to worry about wobbly legs. Because who likes wobbly legs, right? So again, we're doing this with all 3 of the legs of our table. And at this point, we're done. What do you guys think? I love it. Cheers! Here's to another terrific decoupage project. You can find all of our papers on our website. Happy creating!